In 1964, Frank shows up at the New York World's Fair, lugging a hefty bag containing his invention. His plan is to enter it into a competition at the fair. Once inside, he encounters a guy named NYX. Frank enthusiastically unveils his creation, a jetpack. NYX appears impressed, and as Frank discusses the jetpack, a young woman named Athena, NYX's colleague, queries if he crafted it himself. Frank proudly admits he did. However, when NYX inquires about its functionality, Frank reluctantly admits it doesn't work that well yet. Disheartened, Frank learns that NYX can't accept it in its current state. Exiting the building, Athena expresses her liking for Frank, but NYX disagrees. Sitting outside, contemplating if he's a failure like his father used to say, Frank is joined by Athena. She hands him a lapel pin with a prominent T on it, instructing him to follow her discreetly. As Athena leaves, Frank covertly tags along, affixing the lapel pin to his shirt after noticing NYX doing the same. Entering a ride, Frank boards an empty boat, shadowing them through the tunnel. Suddenly, NYX and Athena vanish, leaving Frank perplexed. A laser scans the lapel pin, prompting an underground door to open. Behind it, Frank finds himself facing a substantial machine resembling a tram. Without warning, he steps in, the door seals, and the windows block. The tram jolts and shakes. Frank's vision blurs. After a brief disorienting moment, the movement ceases, and Frank emerges onto a platform in a misty location. Surveying the surroundings, he spots Athena and NYX aboard a flying object. As Frank signals Athena and NYX to wait, colossal robots materialize before him. Dodging their impending blows, he tumbles from the platform, his jetpack taking a beating in the fall. Disheartened once more, Frank is on the verge of despair until a benevolent robot appears and skillfully repairs his damaged invention. Grateful, Frank expresses his thanks just as a group of men starts pursuing him. In a frantic attempt to escape, Frank stumbles and falls again. In the nick of time, he recalls the recent repair job on his jetpack. Swiftly grabbing it, he activates it, astonished to find it now functions seamlessly. After exploring the futuristic surroundings and marveling at the advanced setting, Frank spots Athena and decides to approach her. Although his landing is less than perfect, he proudly demonstrates to Athena and NYX that his jetpack is now in working order. NYX dismisses him, but Athena seems genuinely pleased to see his success. Taking in the unfamiliar surroundings, Frank queries Athena about their location. In response, she smiles and proceeds to give him a guided tour. Many years later, Casey, a young girl, pedals her bike to a NASA launch site on the brink of demolition. Fearing her father's job loss, she resolves to thwart the destruction by sabotaging the demolition equipment. After a successful nocturnal mission, Casey heads home. Catching her sneaking in, her brother Nate realizes her mission to save their dad's workplace. Encouraging her not to give up, he advises her to maintain stealth to avoid waking their father with his boisterous voice. That evening, Athena makes a surprise visit to Casey's house, discreetly leaving a lapel pin adorned with a prominent T on her bike. The following morning, Casey's father, Eddie, receives a perplexing call informing him that the demolition equipment at his workplace has mysteriously ceased operations. Bewildered, Eddie hangs up, expressing his astonishment. Nate and Casey, on the other hand, wear hopeful smiles. Their relation is short-lived when Eddie reveals that a replacement set of equipment is scheduled to arrive by noon. Casey's discontent is palpable, and as she prepares to leave for school, Eddie informs her that despite the temporary delay, the demolition is inevitable, and he is still likely to lose his job. Undeterred, Casey encourages him to hold on to hope, insisting that unforeseen events could transpire. That night, fueled by determination, Casey returns to the NASA site. However, this time, law enforcement is prepared, and she is apprehended. During her stint in custody, someone pays her bail. As she retrieves her belongings from a police officer, she discovers the lapel pin that Athena had left for her. Despite her protestations, the cop insists it was found on her bike. Casey, captivated by the mysterious lapel pin, decides to take it with her. Upon touching it, she is seemingly transported to a new world and lets out a startled scream. Fumbling with the pin, she attempts to touch it again, finding herself in the middle of nowhere. Realizing she hasn't actually left her current location, she cautiously touches it once more, but her head collides with an invisible barrier, prompting her to keep a low profile. Concerned about attracting unnecessary attention, Casey grabs the pin and a piece of paper heading into Eddie's car. Eddie, furious at Casey for her reckless actions, scolds her for almost causing him significant trouble. Unfazed by his anger, Casey is more preoccupied with the pin. She tries to explain it to Eddie, but the pin doesn't seem to respond when he touches it. Frustrated, Eddie takes the pin from her, lamenting that she isn't taking things seriously. Later that night, Casey, undeterred, sneaks into Eddie's room to retrieve the pin. Convinced she needs an open space to explore the new world, she heads to an empty land area. As she walks, she discovers a futuristic place filled with captivating technologies. However, sensing that she might be visible, Casey boards a rocket with a group of space engineers. Just as she grasps the situation, a timer on the back of the pin hits 0, and she abruptly returns to her real world, finding herself in a swamp. Upon reaching home, Casey wakes up Nate and implores him to provide their dad's password. Nate agrees but demands an explanation. Casey reveals the secret of the pin, urging Nate to check online for more information. The mystery surrounding the pin deepens as they embark on a quest to uncover its secrets. After some time, Casey and Nate stumble upon a store that seems interested in buying the mysterious pin. Determined to uncover answers, Casey decides to track down the store. She instructs Nate to cover for her with a camping trip story when Eddie inquires about her whereabouts in the morning. As Casey sets out, Athena arrives at the house and questions Nate about Casey's location. Initially hesitant, Nate eventually spills the beans as he realizes Athena is already aware of the pin. Meanwhile, Casey reaches the store and presents the pin to the woman at the desk. The woman calls her husband, attempting a dramatic entrance that falls flat. Demanding answers, the couple asks where Casey acquired the pin, but she insists on reciprocation. Describing the experiences she had when touching the pin, the couple reveals knowledge of the other world, confirming its reality. Pressing Casey for the pin's origin, she explains finding it among her belongings after being released by the police. The couple, skeptical of her story, becomes aggressive, attempting to harm her. Just as the situation escalates, Athena arrives, saving Casey and effortlessly dealing with the aggressive couple who, as it turns out, are robots. Bewildered, Casey seeks understanding, prompting Athena to insist on an immediate departure. Casey, determined, offers to drive, and as they leave, Athena discloses that she was the one who left the pin for Casey. She was supposed to provide instructions, but Casey ran off. Athena further reveals that the world Casey glimpsed is genuine, but in need of her help to restore it to its former state. Casey expresses keen interest, and Athena discloses that a man named Frank, who also visited the other world as a child, can guide her there. Exhausted from driving, Casey agrees to let Athena take the wheel. However, as she drifts off to sleep, Athena drops her off just outside Frank's house. Upon entering the compound, Casey is chased away by what seems to be Frank's dog. Realizing it's a hologram, she approaches the door, calling for Frank to come out and take her to the other world. Initially resistant, Frank demands her departure, but when Casey reveals the pin to the camera, she's abruptly knocked to the ground. Frank emerges, visibly older, questioning Casey about the origin of the pin. She explains that Athena brought her to his house, though Athena later abandoned her. Frank, uninterested, insists that what Casey saw when touching the pin was a mere commercial, and that the current state of the other world is different from her perception. Unyielding, Casey remains in front of his door, enduring the rain. Eventually, she devises a plan to distract Frank and lock him out, allowing her entry. Despite Frank's warnings not to touch anything, Casey explores a room filled with computers displaying various chaotic scenes around the world. Persistently, she nags Frank to take her to the other world, ignorant of his reasons for leaving. As Frank begins to mention an impending apocalypse, he proposes an offer to Casey, knowing the exact moment of her death. Intrigued, Casey agrees, though skeptical. Suddenly, the probability monitor shifts from 100% to 99%, prompting Frank to question Casey's identity. Before she can respond, a team of robots arrives at the door, demanding Casey be handed over to them on the orders of Nix. Against the impending threat, Frank chooses to resist the robots. As they break in, he and Casey manage to fight their way out and escape. Attempting to start his bike, Athena arrives in a truck, inviting them to join her. Frank hesitates initially, but eventually agrees. During the ride, Frank tries to dissuade Casey from venturing into the other world, claiming it's too dangerous. Athena intervenes, revealing that she scouts for dreamers, and they are the chosen ones. Although uncertain about Casey's ability to fix what's coming, Athena sees her as someone special. Upon reaching Frank's wire station, the trio prepares to enter a teleportation device leading to the OD, which connects to the other world. Despite Casey's optimism, Frank declares he won't let her go. Casey remains determined, and Athena sides with her. Frank, in a last attempt to dissuade Casey, insists that Athena doesn't genuinely care and is simply following her programming. Unconvinced, Casey insists on proceeding. Entering the teleportation device, Frank learns that even Athena was expelled. When he questions why Athena picked Casey, she explains it's because Casey is motivated to help. The device activates, transporting them to the Eiffel Tower in the other world. In a room inside, Frank discloses a secret entrance created by the scientists for themselves. He reveals that a rocket ship under the Eiffel Tower is the key to accessing it. Initiating a mechanism, the Eiffel Tower splits, and the rocket emerges from underground. As they prepare to leave, robots from the other world arrive, climbing the tower to impede their escape. Despite the delay, the three manage to strap in, and the rocket launches, carrying them to the other world, which Frank refers to as Tomorrowland. Upon arrival in Tomorrowland, Frank hands a bomb to Athena for safekeeping, considering it their escape plan if things go awry. Soon, Nick approaches, surprised to see Frank and Athena despite their ban. Frank introduces Casey, claiming she can fix the world, citing the probability percentage going down to 99%. Despite skepticism, Nick, curious, decides to test Casey's abilities by revealing that the world is ending. They climb a platform to reach the monitor, an object capable of showing the future and the past. Casey, captivated, explores her past before examining the future, discovering that the world is slated to end in 58 days. Puzzled by the lack of public awareness, Casey suggests bringing people to Tomorrowland, but Nick dismisses the idea, fearing they would ruin it. Disheartened, Casey walks away. However, as NX and Frank notice a change in the outcome on the screen, Nix, shocked, knocks Frank unconscious. When Frank regains consciousness, Athena reveals they are facing deportation again. Approaching Casey, she questions the purpose of their visit, suggesting they could have simply informed her of the impending apocalypse. As Casey prepares to return the lapel pin, she experiences flashbacks, realizing that the apparent end of the world is an illusion created by the monitor. Casey asserts that the monitor is manipulating minds with the idea of an apocalypse, desiring the world's end. She urges them to turn it off. Just as she voices this, Nix and his guards enter, and he opens a portal to an island, claiming it's the perfect place to spend their last days on Earth. The group faces a critical decision amid the unfolding revelations and uncertainties about the impending catastrophe. As Casey declares that shutting down the monitor is the key to saving the world, NX remains uninterested. However, Frank realizes that NX is the mastermind behind the illusion, a fact NX confirms. He orchestrated the belief in an impending apocalypse to jolt humanity into action, seeing their indifference to genuine threats. NX expresses disappointment at people accepting the idea of the end as natural, turning it into entertainment rather than taking meaningful action. As they are about to be pushed into the island, NX shakes Frank, bidding him farewell. Seizing the opportunity, Frank manipulates the device on NX's hand, causing the platform to collapse. Amidst the chaos, a fight ensues, with Athena, Frank, and Casey battling NX's guards. NX reveals that the monitor cannot be shut down. Determined to prevent the impending disaster, Frank instructs Athena to use the bomb he provided to destroy the monitor. Despite NX programming his big robots to intervene, Athena gives the bomb to Casey, urging her to climb the unstable platform and detonate the bomb near the monitor. Athena takes on the robots, reprogramming one to fight the other, while Frank engages in a physical confrontation with NX on the island. Athena's reprogrammed robot hurls NX's robot out of the portal, struggling to return. Meanwhile, Casey arms the bomb but faces difficulties reaching the monitor due to the unstable platform, caused by the ongoing struggle between Frank and NX. The platform eventually collapses, and though Athena manages to save it using one of the robots, Casey loses the bomb in the process. The other robot persists in trying to re-enter, adding complexity to the unfolding conflict. Athena decisively shuts down the portal, separating Nick and Frank on the island. Casey locates the bomb and consults Athena, who opens a portal to the island and instructs Casey to throw the bomb there. Simultaneously, she tells Frank to return. However, Nix pursues Frank, and just as the bomb explodes, the portal closes, and a large object falls on Nyx, trapping his legs. Despite being hindered, Nyx, determined to stop them, grabs a blaster and shoots Frank. To everyone's surprise, Athena intercepts the bullet, revealing that she glimpsed a possible future and jumped in front of Frank to save him. Injured, Athena instructs Frank to carry her to a repair pod, but she realizes it's too late. In a poignant moment, Athena confesses her feelings for Frank, which her programming didn't allow, and enters a self-destruct mode. She implores Frank to use her to destroy the monitor. Resigned but determined, Frank gets a jetpack and flies to the monitor. Reluctantly, he drops Athena onto the monitor, triggering a powerful explosion that also crushes Nyx. In the aftermath, Frank and Casey contemplate their next steps, realizing that Tomorrowland needs remodeling to restore its former glory. Casey uses a portal to return home and shows her dad, Eddie, what she has been doing. Bringing Eddie along, they become engineers in Tomorrowland. Later, they distribute Tomorrowland pins to a new set of robots, instructing them to seek dreamers worldwide and deliver the pins. The robots promptly embark on this mission, distributing pins to people globally, who, upon touching them, find themselves at the starting point of their journey to Tomorrowland.